right, let's go.
The League.
The League is here.
The Justice League.
I'm just going to try.
That's a nice title. The League of Extraordinary Inventors. Was it?
Okay, here's my. Check this out.
The AAA League.
Hopefully the sound's going to go through. Can you hear the sound at all?
I hear your background speaker, but it's not like part of the stream or nothing.
Yeah, okay. All right.
You gotta like play the video for it to do that. Like add when you hit present video file, then it'll, or you can present share screen. Yeah, share screen. You hit on present, share.
It didn't work.
We don't see it. I just see us three of us. Yeah.
All right, let's try it again.
There's a little arrow next to the video that you're trying to play.
It's working.
There you go. Now we see.
All right.
Oh, cool.
Let me try this again. I apologize. Oh my gosh. Good.
Philippe, you had that clock on top of a coil. I thought you had it on top of the MHD.
Yeah, it's on top of the neodymium magnets, which is the MHD vortex.
It's on top of a neomagnet.
The neodymium magnet. Yeah.
It's hard to see in the video.
Yeah, actually,
You would have got a real powerful neomagnet.
Yeah,
and it slowed it down.
It actually damages the clocks. The clocks are digital clocks are imprecise. They start to they have like permanent drifts, but that's why I purchased like carbon fiber watches. So they will be less affected. But
a carbon fiber clock, you mean?
Sorry?
The clock was carbon fiber?
Yeah, it's a watch from China. It's carbon fiber. There's no metallic component.
No metal, right. Where'd you find that? How'd you find that? How'd you find that clock? That's must have been hard to find.
Yesterday, really late, I found them.
Good thing we got the internet, huh?
Yeah.
So someone actually makes a clock that has no metal parts.
Yeah, and it's pretty cheap too. It's like $70 per watch.
I would never have thought that such a thing existed. Amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't even think you could make a clock without metal.
Yeah, it's well, There's a electronic circuit in it, but I don't know if they use zirconium or titanium because they're not. These are the only metal not affected by a magnetic field. So I don't know.
Still, though, a magnetic field affects a semiconductor.
Yeah, but
It's still,
zirconium and titanium are not, or they won't be affected by a magnetic field. They're not ferromagnetic.
they're not ferromagnetic. Huh?
I posted. Are you on the APEC WhatsApp or?
WhatsApp. I don't use that. You talking about WhatsApp?
Yeah.
I don't use that.
Uh-huh.
No, everybody I know is like, WhatsApp. I don't even know how to use it. What is it, on the phone or something?
Yeah, it's on the phone and the browser. So if I posted all the information, all the updates, I posted them all over here.
Gotcha.
But I can show you the link. Actually, I'll email myself the link.
Okay, guys, check this out. This is going to be my new trailer. See that all right? Can you guys see it all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The Matrix.
The sound's still not coming through.
I mean, it's coming through your computer speakers and your headphone mic.
Yeah. It's coming through both.
No, it's coming through your headphone
Can you
mic.
hear it now?
I can hear it, but through your headphone mic. Are you sharing screen?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sharing the screen.
What browser are you using?
Some
of these browsers don't work.
I'm using Google Chrome.
Yeah,
No, I
had
gotta
a
get
problem
the
with Chrome also. I tried a few browsers. Try what's it called? I'm using it now. It's called Opera. Try Opera. It's working flawless for StreamYard. Like Chrome gave me issues. Brave gave me issues. All these other browsers that had issues, except for Opera browser, and it's free.
Yeah.
Can I share my screen?
You want me to play? Oh, I can't do it.
Yeah. So, anyways, I got some work to do on that. Yeah, go ahead, guys. If you have something you want to share,
I can present it on my end. Post the link.
Tonight, so.
I just want to.
I seem to be able to present.
Yeah, that's a watch. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see that.
That's
Want me to put it up?
Carbon fiber watch that I bought yesterday from Northedge. It's a Chinese company, I guess.
Ooh, that's nice. I like that.
Yeah.
How much is that? How much that set you back?
It's pretty cheap. It's like $70 or $39.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's not bad.
You see hear all the characteristics.
Okay, guys, we have look, guys, we have a newcomer here. His name's Justin. Let's welcome him to the stage. I've never seen him. We have a newcomer here. His name's Justin.
Welcome, Justin.
Hey, Justin. Somebody's overmodulating.
So, go to your audio settings, Mike.
Yeah, Justin, what you have to do
Hey.
No, it's not me. It's him. Yeah, Justin. What you have to do? Hey. No, it's not me. It's him.
Oh yeah, you have to mute the
Justin,
the live stream,
Hey, no,
Justin,
it's not me. It's him.
or pause it. Just view it from StreamYard.
So,
There you go.
hold on here. Yeah, it's Justin. I think, yeah. Every time I turn him on, I get all that feedback. Let's try.
I turned off YouTube. Okay.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. Perfect. Welcome to the show. Haven't met you before. I think you guys probably know my panel here, Philip and Mike. Philip's in Montreal, and Mike is somewhere in the U.S. I don't know where you are.
Miami,
But,
Florida, Miami Beach.
Oh, you're in Miami. Nice.
I'm in Michigan.
Better weather than we got. You're in Michigan? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
I'm just outside of Toronto, so we're pretty close.
Okay. So you
Right near
post a lot
Hamilton.
through one of the groups that I'm an administrator for. The I think it's we have a couple of them. One of it is like Over Unity. I think it's a Facebook group. So
Oh,
with,
yes. Okay.
with Brendan Dyer, he's the other admin. So
Okay, cool. Nice.
yeah. So we have a physics group. I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Laviolette.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So he passed. It was
Yeah, I
his
just
research
heard that.
group.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was his research group, and so we're continuing on the work. But we're have a little different bent now that he's passed. He had his views, and so we went with his, sort of like focused more on his stuff, which we shared. There's a lot of stuff that we did together. We did a paper on ResearchGate together, et cetera. So we're more into engineering a little bit more. My background is computational science, so I have sort of a different view than he had of subquantum kinetics. It's a fantastic model. It's the underlying physics model that he used to interpret all the anti-gravity models. And so I can go into that in depth, but I'm just sort of giving a brief introduction. So in artificial intelligence, sort of my specialty where I started, although I've been doing physics all along the way the whole time, is there's meta level reasoning. We have one reasoning system on top of another reasoning system on top of another reasoning system. So I extended that to meta level science, where every scientific model is a reasoning system itself. And using computer science tools, software engineering, you can look at every theoretical model and you do quantitative, not just qualitative, quantitative analysis on each computer system or reasoning system or scientific system. So, this takes many steps back and start looking at the science that we have and the types of flaws that were put in. For example, 100 odd years back, they didn't have the computational tools that we have today. And the simplification they made was they made everything integers, discrete as opposed to continuous. And if you loosen that up and you say, well, let's go to continuous because we have more powerful tools, it changes physics around completely. And it frees it up in many different ways. And so using that model, we're looking at different things, and we're starting. He was more mathematical. We're looking at physical models. In computer science, we do physical models too. And so we're looking at. So I'll give you an example. So you've got the cosmic level, which is planets, et cetera. Then you have the macro micro level, which is the world we live in. This is standard physics from textbooks 50 years ago. And then you have the atomic and particle level. Then below that, you have the subparticle level. And some people are doing string theory and doing quarks and all that nonsense. We take a completely different bent, and we do work with etherons and basically saying the ether, they're just a lot of very small etherons, and they're different types of etherons, and they react and diffuse. And you can get all these standing waves, and you can actually get particles forming from the reacting etherons. So we do simulations on that type of thing, and we actually get stuff that appears. So basically what you have is you have particles. Every particle is a spinning vortex of reacting and diffusing etherons. and note the term vortex. Okay. And so vortex, so you can start looking at things from as opposed to electron and electricity perspective. There's basically the basic etherons are geons, exons, and yons. Exon and yons are electricity going in different directions, and geons are gravity. Okay, so they make up gravity, and all the behaviors that you see for gravity and electromagnetic behavior are basically the reacting and diffusing exons and yons and geons. And so it allows you to look at physics and to model things in a different way. And these vortical behaviors that I know you guys have been doing some experiments, and you've seen that vortical behavior is causing a lot of different things. And so, I look at other physicists too, and they've seen lots of behavior with vortical behaviors. And I do some experiments with vortical behaviors of materials, like example, crystals, light, they all have, vortical behavior. A crystal has sort of a lattice that is sort of winding going in a direction. So it basically has a vortical behavior. Capacitors, we have a dielectric and conductor next to each other. They create the same behaviors. And so the experiments I've been doing with crystal, light, and orgone, but a lot of physicists who've been working with other things like that have vortical behavior, including some of the stuff that you talked about in the last couple of weeks. I know, like last week you had the guy on who had the spinning vortex of wires, and basically, the vortical model that we work with says, yeah, all of this, everything is built around gravity, electromagnetic behavior. Everything's built around vortical behavior. So that's seen lots of experience. So that's sort of the research area. So those are sort of a couple different areas that I work in: the meta level science, vortical ether, and then the devices that I'm working on more health oriented. If you actually look at it, the human body, the heart, what happens with the heart when it pumps, the cable closes. Okay. And this is coming from physicians, et cetera. Yeah. The cable, the artery or whatever, it actually closes, and then the heart pumps. And that's not how, you pump water or any liquid around the body. Okay. But what they found is that structure of the heart, it literally spins a vortex, like Schallberger, Victor Schallberger, et cetera. He worked with water, and he saw all these vortical behaviors in it. The same thing happens in the heart. And then that blood, that energized blood, is sent around the body. And, it goes to the bottom of the feet, et cetera. But one of the things that happens is that it stops. So how does the pump get it going again? It's not the heart pumping it. It's actually the energized particles. They have vortical behavior that's put into them, and vortical behavior has antigravitic properties, and it helps push things around. And there are people who are doing experiments like Pollock with water, fourth phase of water, that type of thing. So all of these things come together. All of it's interconnected, and all these experiments come together with vortical behavior, including the work that you're doing. And so the insights that we're getting, that I'm working on, is that we look at the components that create these vortical behaviors. Then we try and map flows, of the etherons, and it's a lot freer than working with the more restricted electric model, but it's built on the same thing. But you have more freedom with it. And then experiments, how do you put these components together? So one of the devices I put together is a health related device that helps spin everything up. And I've done some experiments, and you can see sort of ice freezing. And without the device, it's sort of like a foggy ice. That's typically what ice looks like when it freezes. But with the device, you can see literally clear and then a vortex in the middle. And it depends upon the different components that you use. So you use different components: crystals, light, orgone, scalar waves, a lot of different things, and just seeing which ones have the best behaviors for creating better vortical behavior. And so, extending that from a health device, which is trying to spin up, the energy in the body, and it helps a lot, to, antigravitic devices, to energy devices, whether they're HHO, which causes better explosions, et cetera, or the stuff that you guys are working on. So we have a research group. We meet every Sunday for about 5 hours, averaging for the last month and a half. We just get into it. And one of the things we talk about is the stuff that you guys are working on. So very interested in the stuff that you guys are working on, and to see that you guys are advancing it quite a bit. And so it's very interesting to see the research that you guys are doing. Very excited about what you're doing because I'm seeing it. The videos that I've watched, you only have 2 of these that I've seen, and I've looked at some of your old videos. So, but last week's was quite interesting. I didn't watch the whole thing, but yeah, it's very exciting what the research you guys are doing. We're very interested in it. But the one thing is that I can bring to the table is to look at the experiments that you have, and then from a ether flow perspective, components perspective, see how you could potentially advance the research you're doing by looking at those elements and seeing if they can be added or improved. Because that's what I did with the crystal-like orgone device I have for health. I just kept working on chaining the different components together and then improving the components. And each time, different components were better than others. So I just looked at the best components and started improving them and chained them together. And it worked, they kept getting better. The ice kept freezing better. The vortex kept getting better and clearer. So, and the health aspects.
Yeah, I've been working with the piezoelectrics.
Okay, I haven't done any experiments with piezoelectric, so I can't comment on anything like that. So I've only worked with a few of the components. So
that's interesting. I'm another computer scientist, by the way. So salutations.
That's Philip. He's in.
The ether one you're talking about. I figured again my own theory as well that is based on the chronon. Have you heard of the chronon?
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I'm trying to get my speakers up, but I'm still having.
You're coming through your laptop mic or something.
No, I've got speakers, so.
You sound like you're in the background.
Me?
No, Philippe.
Oh, you can't hear me
Philip
properly?
has a little bit of echo.
I mean, I hear you, but you're not clear or nothing. You're like on a microphone that's like.
Yeah, it sounds like you're far away. Yeah. I use a headset.
Are you using a laptop?
Best thing.
Yeah,
I'm using a laptop.
One sec. Yeah, but I don't have a microphone.
That's a little better.
No better.
Yeah, you might.
Yeah,
speak into your.
Maybe you got something blocking.
Mine has it built right on the cord, so I got the headset.
Thank you. Have you heard of the chronon?
I don't. Pronunciation is very hard. Chronon, could you spell it?
Yeah, I've been posting quite a bit on the Facebook group.
Some type of new energy discovery particle or something like that, right?
The chronon is some sort of time particle.
Oh, chronologic, right? Chronology.
Right. So one of the advantages of the subquantum kinetics model is it's much simpler. We toss, the strong force, we toss the weak force, we toss relativity, as opposed to quantum mechanics. We have gradation mechanics because quantum is you've got discrete, whereas gradations you still have the same jumps, but it's a continuous space. I don't know if you know cymatics. With cymatics, you can have like sand on a plate, and put sound out, and the sand forms different shapes as you change the frequency. But as you change the frequency, it makes jumps, but it's not discrete jumps; it's a continuous jump. So within each jump, there's a bit of play.
What do you call that jump?
We just call it gradations because it's continuous as opposed to discrete. So you go from
right.
one.
I know. Yeah, it's moving to the other side or something.
It's just making gradation jump. It goes from one gradation to another. Gradation is continuous, whereas quantums are discrete. So you have
like when you get the magnet too close to the iron, it jumps.
Right. So you can have multiple. You can have different jumps, and you see it in nature all over the place. In the real world, things are continuous. I mean, they made the models simpler to be able to do computation, to think about things. But we have better tools today, and if you actually look at all the evidence, you're seeing that the continuous has better models, particularly because the spins, you can have gradations of spins. So when you have all of that electric behavior, you're basically spinning things up. Give you an example. You got two particles here in the ether. They're basically spinning vortices. Okay, you get them close to each other, or you get multiple ones next to each other, you can potentially form another particle in between, just like you had a couple tornadoes together in the right rotation. You can spin up and get another tornado in the middle. And we do some simulations that do that. So there's more freedom because you're not working with a discrete element. It's basically a complex, particle that's basically reacting and diffusing etherons, which are much, much smaller. And so you get all these behaviors around the particle, and those behaviors can be used to model things that we're seeing in the real physical world, like the things that you're seeing. Okay, you're saying, hey, this is coming from ether, and this is an ether model, basically saying, yeah, and so you've got exons and yons that are moving, and because you're spinning things more, you're getting more of that exon y-on behavior, getting more electric flow around it. So you can use these theoretical models to model it more effectively. You're not restricted to just one solitary structure. You can have more behaviors around that structure, and you can better explain it, or more importantly, better model what's going on with the electric model, the stuff that you're working with, and help you use it to further develop the stuff that you're working with. So it's a more powerful tool. It frees things up, and it so it goes back to just the basic philosophy of science, or philosophy of science is it's more the computation.
That science philosophy keeps changing.
Right, and so with AI,
wasn't at the start. It was like you need space before you have time, right?
Well, we don't have a space-time model. So Einstein was brilliant.
Before the original science is like first came space, then came time.
So every concept we have in our head is a model. So as a computer scientist,
somehow that got in my head.
Yeah, we have to take data. We have to put data into sensors, and the sensors filter lots of stuff. Sensors only pull up a very minimal amount of data.
As to say, you don't have time before space.
So
you need space before you can have time.
So space and time are models, okay? And what Einstein
models of the same thing, or models of two different things?
They are, and okay. So we have in the subquantum kinetics, we have a 3-dimensional space, because that's all that we really see and what we really work with. And then you do have
time is not dimensional. It has no dimension.
It's some people say it could be done with a fourth dimension, but it's better to separate it out and just say it's you've got 3-dimensional space, and you have the 3-dimensional space that changes over time, and that's a simpler way to model things. So there's a lot of different ways of modeling things. So when
geometry changes with time,
elements with so etherons, particles, macro, micro, cosmic, those all change over time, or react in some way with each other over time. So it's a nominalist view versus a realism view. And so this is a big thing, because most of the people think that what we learned in science is reality. It's not. Okay, everything is. Science is a set of tools that we've built to help navigate the world that we live in and help utilize the world that we live in. And every model that we have is really very far away from reality. Okay, because if you're a computer scientist, you spend a lot of time trying to analyze, trying to take, the real world and put it into a computer system, first from sensors, then to computer systems analyzing the sensors, then into some cognitive model, then into something that actually fit into the human mind, like a graphic user interface. And each time we drop a lot of data, and we drop infinite levels of information. So the concepts that we have are very far from reality because we're leaving out so much data. And this is an old philosophical debate, nominalism versus realism.
Yeah, we only include what we can see, touch.
Right. And with computer science and all artificial intelligence, all the work that we've done in the last 50 years, nominalism wins out hands down, period. It's settled, really a settled discussion.
In Boolean algebra, the 5-step process to prove anything. Well, even that's not 100% accurate.
There's lots of problems with every computational system. Think of division. Can you divide by 0? No, you can't. So even in a very simple computational system, you've got singularities.
And why does the number 9 always, add up to itself in the divisible and all that?
So there's lots of computation.
That's the vortex math thing.
There's lots of computational systems out there. And they, with AI, they found that they could do the same thing with many different systems. And so there's not really one that wins out. They all have advantages and disadvantages. So Boolean algebra might have some advantages, but in some ways,
I'm just saying, even that's not 100% accurate.
Right? It can't compute quickly. Every computational system has flaws, and so you recognize it's a tool. And so when people say, "Oh, that theory is true," it's like telling me, "Oh, that wrench is true." That wrench is a tool. There's lots of other wrenches too, and other types of tools also. Depends on the job you're doing. So we can get into very theoretical stuff, and sort of that's sort of the background of it. You go back to sort of the most theoretical stuff. You could say philosophy of science, but because we have AI now, it's now computation of science, because philosophy is just ideas that are sort of guessing, and you're sort of playing with it. With computation, you're actually sitting down and putting it in and making it work. Like, oh, can you get complexity from non-complexity? Yeah, we've run experiments and we see complexity developing from non-complexity. Can you get the complexity we have in the real world? Well, we haven't done experiments that far, but we do see that massive complexity evolving from very simple things.
So both.
So a lot of old philosophical questions become computational, things that you can experiment with. You don't just talk about it. You don't argue about it. You actually can run experiments about all those things. And so that percolates all the way through, and then it gets to the physics, and it gets to what's happening here in this group, where you're actually running experiments. You're saying, well, what's the behavior? And the tools that you've been given, the theoretical tools that you've been given, have limited your thinking. And so that's why we're working with vortical ether and subquantum kinetics, and trying to say, hey, there are other ways of working with these things, and vortical ether is one of the things that you can work with. And you can say, hey, it's not that there are electrons that are moving; it's the X on Y on flow that's affecting. And there's vortical behaviors within every particle that extend beyond just a discrete behavior. It's a continuous behavior, so you can get more flavor, more behaviors out. And so you can look at the experiments you've run and say, okay, let's model it with this fuller system and see what we can think and what we can discover and what we can invent off of it. And so that's what we work with. And there's books on it. I have a couple of websites. We have a vorticalether.com, which is not that well maintained, but we have this is new. I have Crystal's Light Oracle and clo.life, clo.life. I got a website, justin.coven, jcoven.com, and it talks about different experiments, has a whole bunch of links in it. And we have our Sunday group where we work on vortical ether. We were doing a whole bunch of simulations. Now we're looking at a whole bunch of experiments. And
computer simulation.
I do experiments.
Yeah, we're doing some computer simulations of these particles. Basically, you can do equations. They actually have chemicals that you can put together, and you get this reacting diffusion diffusing behavior. We get these waves like particles.
You're able to replace the standard model.
Say that again.
Are you able to replace the standard model?
Well, every model is a tool, so you're not replacing anything. It's a tool, and so that I try and get people away from the realism type speak and say, yes, you can. In essence, it's the same model, except the change is you're not working with discrete things. You now have continuous things. Okay, so spin is continuous, not discrete, and that provides.
What's driving it though? What is driving the spin? What's behind? It's not gravity.
It's
more
multiple
likely
factors.
the spin is creating gravity, not the other way around.
So
what's driving the spin?
We did one, so what we've been looking at is with gradients. And so this could be, waves coming from, and we did see in a one-dimensional experiment simulation, we did actually see some spin type behaviors, asymmetries evolve. And it was, like a galactic waves coming from the center. So that can create, the spin structures. Notice the galaxy's got a spin structure. All the planets have spin structures. The particles have spin structures, angular momentum. So using this type of model, a lot of things emerge. You don't have to have different fields, okay? It's a zero.
Maybe if you just have the vertical and the horizontal field, you're going to have spin just by having that.
So the simulations is we have a gradient coming in to a reacting and diffusing particle, and it gets it to start spinning in 1D space. So you can't really say spin, but you asymmetries
But in
develop.
all these experiments, they have to establish their horizontal plane and then their vertical field.
Well, remember there's 3D. You got 3 different planes, but so the whole thing is that we're seeing spin everywhere. And the whole thing, what type of computational tools can you use to model spin? Okay, and so this is a tool that we're working with to model spin, and you can use it to model in different ways. One in a computational system, which is what we've been doing. We've been playing with that, experimenting with that. But also you can actually take the components that appear to create spin, like crystals have a natural spin in them. Capacitors have a natural spin in them. Okay, because you've got the conductor, which has got a lattice structure, okay, next to a dielectric, which has a little different structure, and you can look at the chemicals within them and see how the particles line up to see if you can see how you get more spin evolving from it. But we know that people are seeing some type of spin behavior emerge in lots of different experiments, in a number of different experiments. If you Wilhelm Reich, I mean, he in his whole orgone thing, he had conductors next to dielectrics, and he was looking at a lot of unusual behavior cut next to it. But people have worked with capacitors, which is basically conductors and dielectrics, and they've noticed results. And the experiments that I've been running, yes, we noticed results. And some people are putting electric flow into it, either a sawtooth, but I know the guy talked about square waves last week. So both of them, and he said that he was having more luck with the square waves.
That's what I have luck with.
There's these models that creates anti-gravity.
Well, I think the square wave is best because of the quick dip on the cutoff. It's square.
Yeah. Mike, can you hear me?
So the electromagnetic force, it, whether it's in a wire or material or in the air, it's got a very complex vortical behavior traveling in a direction. Okay, light has that behavior. Electromagnetic sound has that behavior. So they all have some type of complex vortical behavior, and you by turning it on and off. So what I do with LEDs. So just give you an example. I don't know if this is working right now. When you solder things together, they have a tendency to fiddle. Okay, so this is one of the devices. Basically, I've got you can't see it, but there it is. And so you got capacitors in the back. These are supercapacitors, like 3,000 whatever. And then you've got LED, and you've got crystals at the end. And so crystals, light orgone has strong force, strong energetic force. And notice I'm changing. I don't know. You can see if I'm you can see it in here or not, but I'm changing the colors. But more importantly, because there's 64 LEDs, it goes to a sequence which seems to have the strongest energy, where it has different colors, one after another, and they're all changing little bit by little bit by little bit. So you're continually changing the different colors, but you have all of those different LEDs next to each other. So now I think you're getting into that sequence where it's got more of that, individual LEDs, doing different colors one by one and changing. And so you're getting more of an energetic feel from, that quickly changing. So you got all these different LED vortices next to each other. So just like you had a whole bunch of particles next to each other, you got all those different flows next to each other, creating a stronger vortice behavior. Okay, because they're all, off of each other a little bit. And they're all changing. And so you've got more change. So working with devices, when you're changing the frequency, it seems to have a stronger vortical behavior and more behavior, whether it's antigravitic, whether it's energy, or whether it's health. It seems to have that stronger force. So looking at everything from a vortical behavior perspective, and so okay, so I already talked a bit. So let you guys have some questions, or talk about another topic or what have you.
Justin, any of your experiments?
I've made an accumulator myself. I made an accumulator, orgone accumulator myself. A small little cube, about 12 inch by 12 inch cube, and I put some water in it. It seemed to have some effects, charging the water, like electrostatic effects in the water. I also have a structured water device where it creates the vortex spin. And I got that set up with a signal generator. I'm putting 528 hertz pulse wave. I believe I got it at a 50% duty cycle. So I broadcast that into the actual water using a piezoelectric transducer on the side of the tank, so it's making the whole tank resonate at that frequency. So I do notice the water viscosity increases quite a bit, I would say about 30%. Absorption rate is actually quite a bit higher than regular, say, tap water. It's able to penetrate into the root system of a plant a lot more effectively. So yeah, stuff like that I've been dabbling with over the last couple of years.
Right. So
and also health benefits.
So something you might want to try is, since you're broadcasting a frequency, you might want to vary that frequency. Now, some of the people who work with sound say that if you go from a low to a high, that it has more of an effect.
Right.
And so you may want to change instead of just one frequency, you may want to vary the frequency that's going in, so even has a stronger effect. So that would be, a way of saying, well, okay, let's see if we can improve the vortical behavior. Now, from a capacitor perspective or orgone perspective, one of the things that I did is I worked with different types of capacitors, and I got the stronger and stronger ones. I had to order them off of Alibaba in order to get the strongest type.
Call that a frequency sweep.
Now I haven't been charging the capacitors. I haven't gotten to that point yet because I didn't understand the electronics. I'm trying to understand the electronics better now. I'm seeing that people are using sawtooth and then the square tooth, whatever, but it's not, having the discharge that capacitors have. You don't want to go there because that'll maybe you do. I don't know. I know people, you were working with spark gaps, and you have and that has a vortical behavior too. With the HHO stuff, I think you've seen like what Maury King was talking about in his papers. And he was saying that there's something something in the gas, and so the theory is that it's the vortical behavior, that everything's been spun up more, and that's what's allowing the greater explosion. So the whole thing is and this comes from Claude Swanson's book. He's another physicist PhD, but he looked at all this research over 170 years, from 1850 to I think 2010 is when he did the book. He passed also just recently, last year or two. he collected all this stuff where, you get better things, better outcomes, when you spin things up, better life when things are spun up. So, better biological reactions, chemical reactions. So the whole theory is that because you have these particles and they're spinning faster, remember they're continuous. So with integration, so it's not just, one, it's like 1.02. So it's spinning faster with integration. So when you have that faster spin, they'll react with each other more quickly, more effectively. Chemicals will react better with each other. The biology will react better with each other.
I think
start having anti-gravity and other types of behaviors too.
Hey, can you hear me, Mike?
I think yeah, I can hear you just fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine.
I was gonna say,
I was.
Go ahead, Mike. There's a delay.
Go ahead, Phil.
Sorry.
No, it's Gerald.
Are you able to change the?
Yeah, there is. I don't know. There's a severe lag tonight.
Or the spin of existing particles.
So the experiments that I've been working with, I've been working with crystals, trying to get the better crystals. So we played with a lot of different crystals. I had some crystal plates made, quartz crystal plates made. They can manufacture them. They can also be, polished, etc. Whether they're, beads or whether they're, stems or what have you. So we've been working with different ones, and the quartz ones seem to work well, and maybe even a combination of ones. And so capacitors, I already talked about working with that. The LEDs, the light, I've already talked about that, the variations of the light, and trying to improve the LEDs and sort of the programs that I used in order to get, more of a mix of the vortical behavior, of the spins of the light. So those are the experiments I've done. I've worked with different components. I won't work with a lot of different things. And so that's why I'm interested in sort of the research you guys are doing, the research APEC guys are doing, the research the HHO guys are doing. All of this stuff is of interest.
Yeah, Mike is into over unity experiments a lot, so it's very interesting. Yeah.
So there are some people who are working, with sound in our group, or who have expertise in sound.
Actually,
go ahead.
I have a whole bunch of crystals here. It's a quartz calcite crystal, pretty large. I got that one there, and I got a whole whack of them here. I got so many. Calcite, I hear, is actually stronger.
Right. So there's a lot of different things. People have worked with pyramids and that type of thing. So there's structures. So people took seed. You have all these pyramids around the world, like 3,000, not just in Egypt, not just in Mexico, but all around the world. And so some of the researchers took seeds to the top of these pyramids, and then they found that they could grow much better, the seeds, just like the experiments you're doing, Mike.
These ones
Yep.
Yeah, these ones here got facets on them, so these actually have some structure. Some of them,
right.
Yeah, these ones actually, some of them have carbon in them as well.
I haven't worked with it.
I got a whole whack of them.
Strictly working with the straight quartz crystals.
Yeah.
Some of them are from natural, but they're
what I do with these quartz. Yeah, some of the ones that some of the experiments I've been doing with these is actually putting them hook up my piece of transducer and put the quartz crystal actually right on the transducer itself.
Yep.
And you should hear the sound that's coming off these. Pretty incredible sound. And to the point where, like, if I get it at a certain frequency, it seems like they lose their mass. Like they start, like, I wouldn't say hovering, but they're trailing across the table. Like they just seem to like lose their tension on the table and just start sliding across the table with the sound. So obviously I'm hitting, I guess, a certain harmonic with these
So there's harmonics.
So I've been dabbling in with that and got some pretty interesting results.
So another thing is sound. That, I'm not sure if the transducer.
Yeah, there definitely is for sure.
So there was this Tibetan acoustics.
It's creating sound, definitely.
And what they were using trumpets and were using gong pipes. They had like multiple gongs next to each other. And they basically, in a 90-degree angle, they had like, 100 of these pointed at a stone, and they were able to lift the stone up about, a couple hundred feet and place it onto a altar, a couple hundred feet up.
Yeah, I saw that one.
So a lot of people have been working with this stuff. There's a lot of interesting experiments. And so, we're trying to say, well, what are the components and how can we use those components? So transducer, that's another component. I hadn't heard of using a transducer. I'm not even sure what a transducer is.
I meant to ask you, Justin, sorry, have you ever done experiments with flyback? Experiments?
With what?
Have you ever experimented with your experiments using flyback?
Fly?
Like reverse polarity on an inductor.
No, so the only components that I've really worked with is, I've got like these electrostatic devices that generate things, scalar devices, so I work with, LEDs, crystals, capacitors, components that other people, and we haven't worked with, I don't have an.
How do you experiment when you do an experiment with a capacitor? How does it go? What are you doing?
I'm just working with materials. I'm treating like orgone. So I'm basically saying, what's the best type of orgone you can have? And it's a capacitor. And based upon the experiments that I'm working with, it's a capacitor. And it's a high quality capacitor. And so I've got, 3 of them, really high quality capacitors sitting behind the LED. And then in front of the LED, I've got the crystals. So, and it's inert. The capacitor is inert. So, to work with that transducer experiment, you might want to put some high level capacitors, inert ones, behind the transducer and see if that has an effect, because my experiments say that it does have an effect. So that you might want to do the same experiment you did and see.
One thing I can add to this is Eric Dollard.
Sounds bad, Eric Dollard.
Yeah.
Justin, look into the flyback.
Say that again, sorry.
Right, I don't have those components.
Yeah, Eric Dollard talks about the orgone.
It's just a coil, charged coil. It flies back in reverse polarity.
Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Guys, can anybody hear me?
I can hear you, Mike.
Yeah, but I don't know, Mike.
I hear you better now. Your audio is much better.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Seems
got a lag. It's your internet, Mike. You got lag.
The orgone. Yeah, something's going on. Yeah, it's really bad today. I don't know what's.
If you're using Wi-Fi, that's what it is.
It's never been this bad.
So I'm not at that level.
Yeah, well, we have a Wi-Fi hub.
Okay.
That's still.
Justin.
But what I was going to say is, when Dollar talks about this stuff, he says that Mike, hold on.
Yeah, there's lag.
Mike,
it's lagging big time.
Lag big time, yeah. I'm not at that electrical
it's really bad.
complexity yet.
Yeah.
Mike, disconnect and reconnect. Can you do that?
Connect using.
Yeah. Let me try.
Yeah, so it's a great suggestion. I'm just not at that level of electrical sophistication yet. I'm trying to get there.
Well, it's not that sophisticated.
Right.
So take one side of a coil positive, the other side of the coil negative, and you remove the charge, and the poles flip now. The side that you gave positive becomes a negative, and the side that you gave negative becomes a positive.
So a coil like this, right?
Right.
So I put a battery charge or AC or.
Right. When you give that coil a charge, let's say the left side is positive and the right side is negative. When you remove the charge, that coil is going to fly back in the opposite polarity. And the side that you gave a positive will become a negative, and the side that you gave a negative will become a positive.
Okay, and so what
That's
am
called
I?
flyback.
Okay, so that's a flyback.
Yep.
So what
It flips.
what
It
am I
flips.
trying to do with that? I mean,
Well,
that's
you
sort of
could use
like-
that reverse polarity. See, that reverse flyback is kind of the vortex we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not.
It produces a spike that has a wave that looks like a vortex, half of a vortex.
Okay, that's sort of
Actually, the other half is down a little bit, right?
yeah. So I'm sort of struggling how to use that. I get that you're putting energy in now. If you have AC,
You have to pulse DC to use it. You have to switch. It only occurs. The flyback only happens when you're pulsing.
So I have to have a circuit that pulses the
If
DC.
you have constant DC and you're not pulsing, you're not going to get any flyback, except for when you initially give charge. It'll initially resist and then go forward with your charge.
Yes, I'm not sure how to pulse DC.
Well, you just pulse to positive or pulse to negative. It's up to
Manually, or is there some electric circuit that I
you.
can
A
use?
transistor usually, that's what transistors do. They switch the negative or the positive.
Yeah, if you could send me a circuit, I could try it out because I can work off of a circuit.
I have the Bedini circuit. Have you ever done that one? That's
No.
the one you want to do.
No, yeah. So if you want to send me a copy of the Bedini circuit, that'd be great.
John Bedini.
You putting that in the chat?
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was going to say before
Yeah,
is
take your time.
Dullard was talking about the Orgone energy is actually a conjugate of the static electricity. So a capacitor, which is missing the outside plate, that's basically what an Orgone accumulator is. And he did experiments with plants. And basically, within about an hour or so, the plants turned away from the sun and faced towards the accumulator. And after that, from seeing that, he
And what
knew
type of
that
device would I need? An
was
oscilloscope
a
to
real
see
thing.
the flyback?
No,
yeah,
he used the plants.
right?
The plants reacted to the Orgone accumulator.
I didn't see it in the chat. Or
I'll put it in the private chat also. It's a YouTube video that has the.
oh, there it
circuit
is.
in
It came in.
So yeah, there's all people use flyback generators to experiment with anti-gravity asymmetrical devices, and they have success. With it.
Do they attempt to reach a certain frequency?
Say again.
Are they? Is there a specific frequency for that?
Any frequency you want to use, it's pulsed. Depends on the speed you pulse. That gets you your frequency. And basically, that's one pulse a second.
Yeah, but for gravity to match the gravity, it's a certain frequency range.
Probably a high frequency. Because what goes on, the faster you pulse, the more flyback, reverse polarity flyback you're getting. And that's where the vortex is. At least that's where the vortex shows itself on the oscilloscope. And it shows in the waveform. And the vortex is basically a cone, If you look at the spike in the oscilloscope, it's half a cone going up and coming straight down to collapse. I mean, so you give the inductor charge, the charge, and then the spike happens. High voltage spike with a very narrow bandwidth, so there's very little amps in there. And then it comes sharply down and goes below the zero line a little bit, and then curves to the right to the zero line like that. And it's basically two sides of a vortex. One side of the vortex is bigger. It's like an asymmetrical vortex when you think about it. Sideways, it looks like an asymmetrical vortex. One half of it's on the left side. The other half of the vortex is negative on the right side, partially negative. Well, negative, because the vortex, the spike starts on the left side, goes straight up from zero line on the oscilloscope, goes curves up nice and smooth, straight up, and comes straight down, and goes below the zero line a little bit, and then goes up and curves to the right onto the zero line. If you ask me, that's one half of a vortex there, and the other half is right there. You know, it's a curve, two curves, one on
right. So with subquantum kinetics, you don't have to look at the curve. You can basically say within the interacting, every particle is basically a vortex, and by putting this energy in exon y-ons, by putting the electric flow in, you're spinning up the vortex of all of those different particles. And so each time you pass that exon y-on flow through, you're going to be spinning up the vortices of all of those particles and the combined vortical behavior, because remember, all of these things can combine with each other too. So you can have an extra force beyond just the individual particles on their own. And so that's the freedom that you have with a model, etheric model, that's continuous as opposed to discrete, electrons.
So you could experiment with that flyback voltage.
Yeah, so I had a coil. I haven't had an idea of how to use it.
Bedini uses it to basically takes standard 12 volts DC power, we call that forward power, to forwardly charge the coil, and then remove the charge in it, and the coil will fly back in the reverse polarity into another battery. That's the Bedini concept. So the second battery it's not charging with your forward power from your forward pulse. So it's charging with reverse flyback.
So working with two batteries.
One is running the system, the other is charging off the system. The one that's running the system is running it with forward DC pulses, and the one that's being charged is being charged with reverse flyback voltage.
So do you
not a reverse DC pulse?
Do you need 12 volt?
Reverse flyback.
I do have one 12 volt. It's a small 12 volt, not a big car battery or anything like that, like a boat battery.
Yeah, this thing will restore the battery too, because that spike will. It's a high voltage, so it will shake off sulfites and on your battery and clean up your.
Can you work with
your plates clean?
Can you work with lower voltage batteries or?
Yeah, any voltage. It still makes the spike, even low voltage, but the spike is lower voltage spike, but it's still the same shape.
It has to be a chargeable battery.
It's otherwise known as surge power. All these surge suppressors are throwing out this spike, and with lower voltage, the spike is lower, a smaller spike with lower voltage, but still has the same shape, the two curves. And with more voltage, it's a higher spike. It's still the same shape.
Okay, I'm still trying to wrap my hand around all these coils.
Yeah, it can be a pickle.
Yeah, these components that you're working with. So I'm still working on it. So it might take me a while. So I'll probably ask some questions next time.
But that Bedini circuit is called the schoolgirl circuit, and Bedini called it that because he said a schoolgirl can build it. So I think Justin here is old enough to build it.
Well, I don't want to electrocute myself. So
it's low voltage.
Okay, 12 volts is low voltage. Okay.
12 volts, yeah. There's no high voltage here.
With a power battery,
electromagnet and some magnets on a wheel, and two batteries, and a transistor, and two diodes. Very minimal on components.
Electromagnetic too. Okay.
It's an electromagnet driving the wheel. He's just pulsing the electromagnet, and the magnet on the wheel lines up with the core of the electromagnet. That's how you're driving it.
Okay, I'll take a look at the video you provided.
Well, at first, most people think that the Bedini motor is just a pulse motor, but it's actually a pulse motor that harnesses flyback, and so it's a flyback circuit also.
Okay.
He faces a high voltage diode on the on the direction that the reverse polarity is going.
Okay.
You'll get it when you'll get it.
It'll take time. Look, I've got all these
It's
projects.
a high voltage spike, so he uses a high voltage diode to capture the positive of that high voltage spike.
But I do have a coil sitting on my desk, not connected to anything. So,
right, you don't need to build the Bedini circuit to do that experiment. You could just take the battery and connect one end of the coil permanently to the battery, and then tap the other end to the other end of the coil. And you'll be basically pulsing that coil, creating an etheric flyback wave in the reversed polarity to your pulse. It's going in the opposite direction that you gave it. The direction you gave it, it will go in the opposite direction when you remove your direction.
Okay.
I call on it now the opposite equal reaction. I think that's what. I honestly think that's where that phrase belongs to this whole flyback event.
There's some sound feedback in the background. I don't know. It's very annoying.
What is the flyback trying to achieve?
Well, for one, if you pulse a coil to drive a wheel, and that coil then flies back, if you don't use that flyback voltage in the opposite direction, you're wasting it. You could use it into another coil and have that contribute to the driving of your wheel instead of throwing it out.
Yeah.
Oh, like the Adams motor does that. Right, I think the Adams motor does that, right, Mike? The Adams motor, right? It will the stator coils will charge up off the moving magnet on the wheel, and then as soon as the magnet on the wheel moves away from the stator coil, there's a switch to remove the stator coil, to open up the stator coil so it has no drag. And when you and coincidentally, when you open up the stator coil,
it beats the lens effect.
Also, you heard me? Like the stator coil and the Adams
beats
motor,
the lens effect.
Right, and it flies back and actually pushes the magnets in. Did you know that, Mike? On the stator coil will actually contribute to driving the wheels.
I see that all the time. Yeah.
If you switch it, what was that device Bedini keeps talking about in the
Right.
World War II?
Exactly. Because it's switching so fast.
Yeah, it's switching the drive inductor and the stator, the collecting coils.
Last week was
very interesting.
Yeah, the pickup coils, they're just picking up the flux of the magnets.
Yeah, traditionally today, generators don't switch.
Coming around. It's separate from the rest of the drive system. So basically, they're working simultaneously, one drive system. Now, that's what also has the flyback, but the pickup coils are also in the mix, picking up all the flux coming off those magnets spinning around with the wheel. So I kind of have two sides coming in to the system. So I've been really able to, expand on it. The transducer helped my coils, the flyback on my coils, smoothing things out, do a phase shift at the same time. And into the mix, my triggering device is a mechanical relay switch that I've been able to overclock it to go really, really fast. So with the combination of those two things working together, my back EMF spikes are like hitting almost 1 kilovolt. So, and I'm putting in like less than half a watt to run the system. So the amount of what I'm getting back for how much I'm actually putting into the system is huge. It's a huge ratio.
See, those spikes are pure potential mostly. There's such a small amount of current there, but it's all potential.
Right. Well, that's the spike or the radiant spike that Bendini talks about. That is what you need to restore the batteries and desulfate them at the same time. So, because I'm running at over 200 hertz frequency, it helps in that desulfation of the plate. It's even better. So
I can't tell you how long I've been hearing about that radiant spike and not actually realizing that it's in reverse polarity, which makes me feel like an idiot.
Well, you can tell just by the color of it. No, not at all. It's you have to. You can identify it by the actual how it looks. It's a greenish blue spike, where a positive spike will create heat. So that's usually a white spark. The one you're looking for is the greenish blue spike or spark. And that's the radiant spike. That's the negative energy that enters the system through that, collapsing of the magnetic field in the inductor. So that's what you're looking for, is that greenish blue spark. That's the radiant energy that Tesla talks about, Bendini talks about. A lot of people in the past that have been working on this stuff, that's what they're looking for. And my system never heats up. If anything, my inductors actually cool down by 2 to 4 degrees. I've actually had a coil cool down almost 10 degrees from ambient while I'm running it. So I was doing thermal tests on the coils as they're running. And so the effect actually seems to increase over a period of time. So the longer it's okay, go ahead.
I was just trying to tell Justin, if you remember the old black and white TVs back in the day, they used to explode when people turned them off. And that's because they basically switched the TV off. And when you turn off the inductor, it flies back in the reverse polarity and blows up your TV.
Yep.
It's called a surge. So they had to build a flyback transformer and put it on the back of the TV just to capture that surge power every time the person turned off their TV, and their TV won't blow up now. It'll go into the flyback coil that they added to the TVs later.
No,
but when they first made TVs, they were blowing up.
Was that an isolation transformer they were using for the flyback, or what?
I mean, I took apart a few TVs. They got just a regular 14 gauge two wires or so running around the whole TV to I think that's connected to the flyback transformer on the back where the cathode ray tube is going in. And they're just using that wire that goes around the TV and connecting it to the flyback to help isolate the coil with the flyback and the whole TV, because it seems to the TV seems to be flying back itself, not just the cathode ray tube that's generating the image. I mean, the whole TV must be flying back. How else would the TV explode? The glass and everything else. Glass is an insulator, yet it explodes because it's capturing that high voltage. Because you can send high voltage through anything, even an insulator. So back in the day, these TVs, the tubes would just blow up, glass everywhere, when they turned it off.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
I remember those old TVs. We had an old Viking, and that thing had a lot of tennis static that used to come off that tube. It was unreal.
I believe it was Dollard that I heard that from one of his lectures. Eric Dollard. He mentioned that about these old TVs. And
I pretty much watched every single video he ever put out. There used to be a vacuum tube in those old TVs that When
The cathode ray, it's just a
they
huge
got old,
diode.
they
No?
used to go like a charcoal brown on the inside, and we're actually right, but it was also very dangerous. A lot of guys were getting cancer after handling those things, so there's some radioactivity happening in those old vacuum tubes. So yeah, he was saying a lot of technicians were getting sick after handling those because the radiation, I guess, those things were absorbing and shorting out the old tubes.
Just watching TV
It's like a brownish type tinge that they basically short out after that. But apparently they're not very good for your health.
What part of the TV is that again? The cathode ray tube part?
It was part of the power supply. Yeah. Well, it was connected all with the power supply, right? So all the high voltage was going through those, charging those up, and then that would go through the tube itself, power the actual tube. So those were the power. They were quite large. I remember them. They're about 2 to 4 inches long and at least 1 inch in diameter. They're quite large. But a lot of this stuff is disappearing now. Everything's all gone. Yeah, the cathode rays. Yeah. I have some old,
and that's the thing in the back of the TV.
spark gaps. One of them was from a radar. Yeah. You can do some interesting experiments with those old tube TVs. You can actually see if you get one of those old tube TVs, turn it on where it's got like the white noise or the white fuzz on the screen, or even if it's a dark screen, it works too. And you could take a magnet and you put it up against the screen, you can actually see the lines of force of the magnet on the screen. It actually shows up on the screen.
Interesting.
Because
So you
the
can see the
cathode ray
North
is
Pole
projecting a
and how all
magnetic
the
field.
flux lines go around the magnet.
That's what it is.
to the
It's
South
projecting a
Pole. It's pretty
magnetic field
interesting.
inside a glass tube.
That's right. And while it's charged electrons, it's basically shooting it at the screen, right? And you could actually use those cathode rays to actually do the double slit experiment. You could actually use that as the projectile unit, right?
It's hard to imagine how an electron can produce an image, but it does.
So what are your plans for the next? Yeah, it does. Yeah. Well, if it's in a vacuum tube, it can be done, right? And I imagine those electrons actually emanate outside the actual tube itself. I don't think they just stop at the tube. I think they continue outward. So what is your plans for the next while, Justin, as far as your research is concerned?
I've got a board. Okay, so right now I've soldered things together, but I also have a PCB board that I've designed for the LEDs. So I'm working on that board and then a case. So I'm trying to work with that device that I have. We have our weekly Sunday group that we talk about experiments. We talk about now we're just trying to get started with the experiments, but we talk about other research that's been done, different experiments, and we're trying to correlate it with the vortical behaviors, it's a vortical ether group. So we're trying to map all the different things that we see, whether it would be the work that you guys are doing or that the Antigravity guys are doing, or the Tibetan acoustics are doing. So we're trying to map that to the.
Because I think if you
go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think with my coils, I'm creating a huge amount of spin on the inductor itself. There is a spin and a collapsing. So I don't know if hooking that up to say a signal generator and put that inductor into your experiment or in the proximity of it, is it going to have some kind of influence
Right.
on your device?
So the device that I have
external magnetic.
So there's so we were looking at the effect of a sawtooth frequency being put in. There's some simple circuits that I could do. They could put into the capacitor. Now, my electric background is much lower than you guys, so I'm trying to get ramped up from that perspective. So I'm probably doing some simpler experiments from an electrical perspective, so I get more familiar with the material. So note that the only electricity they have is on the LEDs. So being a computer scientist, I have some background with the programming them, with the different pieces of hardware that go into a PCB board and that type of thing. So I have that type of training, but working with raw electrical components that you guys are working with, that's something I need to be trained up with. So it's going to be a slow ramp up, with the coils, with the spark gaps, with all of those different components that you're working with. And so, yes, I am interested in it. That's why I put one of these together, but I didn't quite know how to use it. Didn't know how to put a circuit together. So it's going to take me a little time to ramp up on the electronics, but I am working on the components that I have knowledge base with. So
try not to think about it, Justin. Just put the lines together and don't
see. Some people like to work with electronics, but
no, it's something.
Build the circuit. Don't try to figure out.
I think
how it works.
People like to stay with the electronic switching. I prefer to use analog. I'm more old school that way. I really stay away from the transistors, and everything I use is all mechanical analog. So
okay, so it'll be bit by bit. So
I find I get better results.
So one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to map. So we have this etheric model. So we're trying to look at the different electronic components and try and map them with the etheric flows that are part of the subquantum kinetics, vortical ether model. And so, I know you say that, but my interest is trying to map those components, but also to just learn it. So, I am just trying to learn how the components work, but I'm also trying to map them to try and understand them better and to understand them from a vortical ether perspective, not necessarily from, just from the standard electronic model perspective.
There's Gerald. I hear you. I don't see you.
Thank you, God.
Oh, is he? No, he's not back. He dropped off. Yeah, he dropped off there, and he hasn't been back. So he's like that. He might come back a little later, so we can just continue what we're doing here.
So we got
just experiment.
So we have
run something by you.
I didn't learn all this stuff in school. I didn't learn any of this stuff.
Yeah. So we have Mike Kroll, Mike does, and Phil.
Yeah, like I didn't learn any of this stuff in school at all. Like all this stuff I
learned basic, electronics in school
Mike
and
Faraday.
high voltage in the field, but I didn't learn any of this in any of those areas, and in the field or in school.
What field were you in?
What we're talking about, anyway.
What field were you in when you say
high voltage and low voltage work?
In just electronics design, electrical engineering, or?
No, I'm a high voltage electrician, and
electrician. Okay, yeah.
And I do low voltage installations for phone systems, alarm systems. I'm an ITT graduate. I have an electronics degree, but I never learned about, the flyback voltage, the flyback.
Right, they don't teach it.
Or or at least the spin theory and all that, and these things.
No, it's not taught.
That's occurring with these inductors and these components.
None of this is taught in school. None of this stuff is taught in the.
So I know Dollard. I saw some of his comments and some of his presentations where he said that you've got with the power line, you've got the flow going one way, then back the other, and it can't happen that fast, because and then back again. So it's like 3 times the speed of light. And so the equations that are used are a little different when you're working with power lines. And so it's like the electricity is going 2 different directions, like the exons and yons are going in different directions. That's from a subquantum kinetics perspective. You got exons and yons going in 2 different directions at the same time.
Is that X for horizontal, Y for vertical or something?
No, okay, so there's 3 basic etherons, exon, yons, and geons, and they react with each other, creating these standing vortices, which are the particles. And there's trillions of them, quadrillions of them that are interacting with each other. And so, everything is mapped from the perspective of exon, yon, and geon flows. So, all the physics that we have is modeled using exon, yon, and geon flows.
So that's the building block.
The building block. So you don't have a strong force, you don't have the weak force, you don't have quarks, you don't have string theory. You've got a much simpler set of elementary components, and everything emerges from them.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Angular momentum. You got linear momentum, but angular momentum emerges from the reaction and diffusion flows of exon, yons, and geons.
Yeah, I have a similar theory, but it's based on chronons. But I understand you. It's a building block that.
Right. It's a holistic model. It's got a lot of fewer components, and it comes from chemistry and simulations of chemistry. And then what Paul Laviolette noticed was, hey, you can use that same type of behavior to try and represent basic physics components, and so it can simplify the representations that you're working with. And I have a few videos online on meta level science. One of them is a comparison of subquantum kinetics with conventional physics, and I point out dozens of advantages.
Maybe keep your video off, Mike, because that might cause the lag.
Yeah,
just go audio.
So the videos I have, the meta level science that does a comparison of conventional physics with subquantum kinetics, points out dozens of advantages of subquantum kinetics over conventional physics, and basically no advantages for conventional physics, very, very minimal. It's a simpler model, and a lot of things emerge, all the different behaviors emerge. And the basic change is you're just going from discrete, which is a limited mathematical model, to continuous, which is a much richer mathematical model.
Do we have reading materials on that?
So I'll drop something in the chat. It's you can just type in meta level science in YouTube, and you'll be able to find my videos.
Meta level science.
Meta level. So it's a variation of an artificial intelligence field, meta level reasoning. So it just goes from meta level reasoning to meta level science, because every scientific model is a reasoning system. So it just expands meta level reasoning and AI into meta level science.
This presentation is
Coven 27?
Coven 27, yeah.
All right.
Okay, I just subscribed.
Great. Maybe I'll get to 100.
You got another fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree. I agree with what you're saying. I have a similar theory, but I'm using the proton, but it's the same principle. It's the building block of everything else. And,
So you have Chronos. You were mentioning Chronos. Is that your model or a different somebody else's model?
no, it's my model. It's a chronon. It's my model, but I figured somebody in the 1920s already thought about the particle called chronon.
Yeah.
It's a time particle, a frequency. That's all it is.
Yeah. So there's a subquantum kinetics book by
Wait,
Paul.
did you say frequency, Phil?
Yeah.
It's a time particle. Frequency is a partition of time.
Yeah,
Time
it's a time rate. It's a time rate.
Time rate, okay.
I simplify it by saying it's a time particle, but it's really a time rate particle. And you can map everything from there.
But a chronon is, you're saying it's just a partition of the overall time? That's what one chronon is?
A chronon, yeah, it's
one partition of the entirety of time. In other words, it's not all of time. A chronon is one unit
of time rate. It's a time rate
of many units that comprise time. You're saying?
Yeah, it's a time rate that's going to affect. That's going to create.
Because you have frequency. Frequency is many partitions that create the overall time the time bandwidth. And there's all kinds of frequencies inside, different rates of time inside time. So a chronon must be a stable one element of stable time, not a varying frequency, because that would be a partition of time. A partition of chronon, basically frequency would be the partition of that chronon.
Yeah, the quanta.
A section of a chronon is a frequency.
Yeah. So that maps the matter,
chronology,
the magnetic field, and pretty much everything. Really a building block. So that's why I'm trying to put a clock next to a magnet to measure a time shift, because it already works with plants. There's already a peer-reviewed paper saying that the magnetic field speeds up time, and I'm trying to do it with clocks, but I need an anti-magnetic clock, obviously, for that. And that's what I was showing earlier, a clock that can go through in a magnetic field.
This time subject can go on, man. It's a complicated one, but someone's got to figure a way to get this thing simplified.
We're in 2023, so we got computers, we got pretty much everything is.
I like to simplify it like this. Frequencies are the entirety of time. They all exist. All these frequencies are sections of a second, or if you want to call the entirety of time 1 second, go ahead. But we all know that's not the entirety of time. And let's say time doesn't have an ending or a beginning, it still has an entirety, right? And then whatever that entirety is, it's got a circumference or perimeter or bandwidth, and inside that bandwidth are your frequencies, your different rates of time,
Yeah, exactly. Time contraction, time dilation. But you cannot go back into the future because it's not that dimension. Just like Justin, it's a.
So time must be a sponge that can be squeezed or.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, and a coulomb, a kilogram, a Tesla, and electric field, gravity, and time. They're all the same. It's all the same thing. It's a frequency, and it represents inertia as well.
There appears to be a one frequency behind them all, though. I mean, we're calling that the radiant, aren't we?
Yeah, it's a if you use the E equals
Etheric
MC
ether.
square, and if you use E equals MC square and E equal Planck constant times the frequency, then you can rearrange very quickly that mass is
Well, wait. E equals mc squared. C is constant. It's time at a constant rate, not a whatever the constant rate is. I mean, it's not time at your local rate. It's time at a constant rate, and everybody's locality has a different rate of time. So that's why it's not local time. It's C. It's constant time. It's the universal constant time. Whatever that frequency is that's driving all the other frequencies. If it's the radiant, I don't know. But there's a constant rate of time throughout the cosmos, and that is the standard for the rate of time. But that doesn't mean that the time is not being varied, because it very much is when you do
exactly. The local time is constant and not the.
Well, that's the constant time for us is not constant time over there, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But what is constant time everywhere? You see, that's the question. Constant time changes where you are at, but what is constant time everywhere all the time? What is that constant rate of time? That has to be the radiant energy field or whatever, or the etheric field it's not varying based on where you're at, because it's everywhere. It's the constant overall time rate. That of course you can vary time within that field of that constant time field. That's not variable as a whole. But in sections, of course you can vary the sections of the constant time, because we do it all the time with frequencies. We partition frequencies within a bandwidth the same way you could vary time in different locations within the constant time field. But you can't vary the constant time field as a whole. That is constant. That's the C. And then you square that. But I mean, it all depends how you look at these formulas. And E equals mc squared, I would think that's referring to the time as a whole, not time where you're located.
Yeah.
Time as a entirety, like as the whole cosmos has a oscillation to it, and that is the constant time.
I think Robert Dick from the 1930s, he wrote something on the variable speed of time, and he said that the speed of light is relative to the mass of the universe, something like that. So yeah, I figure I estimated something similar as well, but with a different factor next to it. But it's very similar. It's like anyway, it's relative to the mass of the universe. But
I mean, through experiments with a function generator, we know we can change time.
Yeah. We can speed it up. That's what
is that hard to understand? I mean, it's like a fact.
Yeah.
You're changing the frequency for that coil that's getting that frequency. Its time has changed.
Exactly. So you can do superluminal communication or force field. Force field. What is a force field? Is you slow down time. You actually dilate time to the point that nothing can pass through, because everything will be stopped. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, in a weird physics way, I guess. I mean, time is a factor when it comes to momentum and
time. I mean, every object has a speed is meters per second. So if you dilate time, then you're gonna reduce the speed. So you dilate time to infinity, then you'll block the projectile speed down to zero.
I mean, time manipulation is not a theory; it's a fact. We do it with function generators, frequency generators. It's just an oscillation
Yeah, exactly. So, but you do it locally, you know. So that's going to be a force field.
Right. And so that's what I'm saying. The overall cosmos has a oscillation of its own, and you can change the oscillation within that field locally to wherever
Yeah,
that generator is
exactly.
running.
Yeah.
So one of the problems with time models,
Keeping
modifying.
in mind, your generator has to be in resonance with the galactic generator to stay running and not blow up or whatever.
You've got paradoxes if you're trying to work with a time model.
Yeah, but you get paradoxes if you go in the past.
Yeah,
I don't tend to believe that you can create a paradox unless time has not happened yet.
So
the first run through time.
Paradoxes are a problem with your model.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. You cannot go in the
a
past.
paradox can only exist if we're going through the first creation of time that ever happened. If we're living a repeat, you cannot create a paradox in a repeat.
With the subquantum kinetics model, you try and simplify everything. I mean, that's the whole thing with every model. You try and make everything simple. And so we don't have multiverses. We don't have more than 3 dimensions.
Yeah, same thing with me.
The simplest model, and you don't have, so it's not warping of time. What you're doing is that what happens is that, you've got so many etherons, you got so many particles, you got a density in certain locations, like around stars, that density slows things down. And so that's why you're seeing the slowdown, not because space is being warped. So, one of the things about meta level science and artificial intelligence, they have these reflective, another term meaning the same thing as you have reflection, is you have one layer upon another layer. And so you have this upper layer describing things, and then a layer, where things are actually operating. And so what relatively did, it's probably the first reflective model or meta level science, meta level reasoning model created, is because it had that meta level reasoning system describing the space with the components inside entangled with each other. Now that's a problem. It confounds and makes, the computation more complex to work with, and it creates paradoxes, a lot of problems, from a reasoning perspective. So, make the model as simple as possible. And that's what, subquantum kinetics does. So there's a book by Paul Laviolette called Subquantum Kinetics. I keep trying to put it in the chat, but it doesn't seem to get in there. I provided a link to it in the private chat. I don't know if somebody else can put that into the actual YouTube chat, but it's etheric.com. Where you can pick up Paul Laviolette's book.
You put it in the private chat. That's why
I put it in the private chat. I also tried to put it in YouTube, in the general chat. But
click on comments, and that's where you want to put it.
Yeah, I have to attach my account, and I'm not sure.
I did it.
I want to look at the conditions before I do that. But I just directly went to YouTube, and I tried to put it in there, and it doesn't seem to be taking at all. Not sure why.
Yeah, you need to log in.
I'm logged into YouTube, and I'm trying to drop it in the chat there, and I put it in 4 or 5 times, it just didn't go there. But you guys have it, and so it's a book. He came up with the model back in the 80s, so it's like 40 years old. He started before that, but he did his first publication then. So there's he's got like 13 research papers, or 11 dozen maybe research papers in journals, and we've done a few others. So it's an established model. He's made predictions with it, etc. Now I take a little different vent from him, because he's sort of more the standard physics model. And I say it doesn't have to be that complex. You don't have to have multi dimensions. You don't have to have multi fields. He calls it a unified field, but I say, no, it's a zero field model, because you don't have any fields in the model. You just have exons, yons, geons, and you've got reaction and diffusion, and that's it. And the fields emerge. The electric field, the gravitational field emerge.
It makes more sense to me in a weird way.
from the exons,
You
Y.
just have,
It's
what you
more
call it, reaction and diffusion.
right.
Right.
It's more complex because it's a continuous model. So the computation, so there are some complexities in it, but from the base elements that you're working with and how they're reacting, it's much simpler. You have many fewer components, many fewer working pieces, and more things emerge from those very few working pieces. And that's what you want. You want to have a simpler model where all the different behaviors emerge. So I try and say, all time dilation, all this, varying of time it's complex, making things more complex than they need to be. And because, if you've got a model where you can make everything emerge from all of these simpler behaviors, you want to work with something like that. And that's why one of the many reasons why I prefer the subquantum kinetics model, and I'm working with that pretty much exclusively. Although looking at other experiments and seeing how those experiments and things, can be represented in the subquantum kinetics model. Notice subquantum kinetics is a family of models, not just one model. Just like relativity, there's a family of many different models, and many different scientists are working on many different variations of it. But subquantum kinetics is a little broader than that.
It's funny, you have electrical kinetics, but there's also kinetics that are not electrical.
You have gravitational and electrical, and those are and mechanical, and so that's all you've got in subquantum kinetics. Other things emerge.
And you have magnetic kinetics.
Magnetics emerges from that, and I haven't published this, but so one of the things that we have electric behavior is you got exon and yons flowing in opposite directions. But my theory, haven't worked it, I haven't written it up, etc., is that because everything needs to be described from exon y and flow, is that magnetic behavior is exon and y and flow in the same direction. And so you would get the same behaviors interactions between magnetic and electric behaviors by just working with exon and y and flows, magnetic being in the same direction, where north south pole type thing, and then exon y and flow in opposite directions being electric flow, and that they key off of each other based upon materials. Just like vortical behaviors key off of crystal behaviors, other types of behaviors. So I say it's just electric and gravitational and mechanical, but there's also vortical, behaviors. So that's another behavior that's observable, but the basic components are all exon, yons, and geons.
I find it interesting, the north field of a north magnet, the electrons flow clockwise, and the south counterclockwise.
Sorry, say that again.
Didn't notice that?
Can you say that again?
A magnet, the north field of a magnet, the electron flow is clockwise on the north field, and the south field is counterclockwise on the electron flow.
Interesting.
On the last APEC conference, there was a guy on there. He had a diagram that showed that.
Okay.
No.
Well, yeah, I put my username in my YouTube username in the chat if you want to connect back.
Guys, we're gonna go for another 10 minutes here, and I think we'll call it a night. We've been on almost 2 hours, so.
Okay. I haven't had a break yet, so I'm getting ready for a break.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
So
talk a little bit about what I'm doing.
So I gave you guys an idea of the experiment that I'm working on. So that we have our weekly meetings, and we talk about, modeling things from subquantum kinetics perspective. But then I'm also working on the CLO device, which is the PCB board and a case, trying to make it open source so that anybody can, use the plans and have boards built, etc. And so, that's what I'm working on. Brendan Dare just did a recent presentation at APEC, and Paul Laviolette did a presentation at APEC a couple of years ago. I did an open mic for about half an hour at APEC a couple months ago. So I'm probably going to do a presentation and talk about things a little broader. I talked a little bit about it here, but I go into more examples. And so I might try and do a presentation over at APEC, but that's going to take a little time to work on it. I'm doing all this on the weekend. So this is weekend warrior stuff for me.
Yeah, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I'm very interested in stuff, so I do want to get up to speed on all the electrical component part. Yeah. So we have some guys who are working on sound, so trying to get up on speed on the sound stuff. So all of these meetings are very interesting. I have a tendency to stay away from the apex stuff because everybody's working with relativity, and so that's not the model that I'm working with.
Not me.
Yeah.
I'm undoing all the mainstream stuff on the chat on APEC.
Right. So we're trying to provide better tools for researchers and experimenters to work with, so it's easier for them to come up with ideas for advancing the work they're doing. And so, we'll basically take examples of different experiments everybody's doing and come up with modeling of how the flow is working, and then suggestions of how to improve those flows. And I gave you some ideas here. So just put capacitors, like my crawl, I just put some capacitors behind that. Was it you said a transducer behind a crystal? Just put some capacitors behind the transducer and see if that has an effect. Inert, not putting any, and then you can try and see if they're, if you put some type of sawtooth or other pattern.
I never thought it'd do it. It's actually
so that's like
a good idea.
So that's like orgone behind it. So that's sort of like the crystal light orgone that I work with. But the sound or
capacitors.
Yeah, so sound is another thing you can add. I haven't experimented with that. And then coils, as Phil was talking about, try and add that into the experiment too. So I've been certainly thinking about it. I don't know how to do it.
Coils are actually very good speakers.
Yeah. I just don't know how to do it. So I'm going to try and get up to speed with that and see if I can figure out how to do that. So I appreciate the suggestion and the education. So I sort of gave you an idea what I'm working on. What are you guys working on? I know I hear lots
on
of
a switching circuit. That's based off the Bedini ESG circuit. I doubled it, and it's kind of functioning like a double pole, double throw switch. And basically, people have been trying to find ways to move the batteries without doing it manually. So they create circuits to time the dumps back and forth.
Yeah,
and my switching circuit is going instantaneously. Each pulse is going backwards and forwards. I wanted to run something by you, Mike, on that circuit. See what you thought regarding the batteries taking the charge and giving charge. So if you're interested, bring it up. Yeah. So bring it up.
Yeah, I'm working on a few things. I'm working on the Stirling engine project and doing that.
Sterling, I saw that. That's a tough one build there,
Is anybody hearing me?
Yeah, we hear you,
Does
but
anybody
you
hear
lag.
me?
We hear
Yeah,
you, but you're lagging.
It's not easy.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't. Last week was 10 times better. This week, I don't know what's going on. It's like I'm being shadow banned on this now. Unreal. Maybe my show was too good last week.
We use web.
Are you on Wi-Fi?
We can't have that now.
Bernie took over, I think.
Yeah, mine's on the Wi-Fi.
So I use
I have
WebEx.
a hub.
So I don't know what
That's
the
what it
difference
is.
between
It's
StreamYard
I have
and
a
WebEx.
hub, right? So
Windows slows down over time, so it might get worse and worse.
So how do you like StreamYard compared to, like, say, WebEx?
I've never tried WebEx. StreamYard's good because it's got a lot of features in it, right?
Or Zoom.
And the price is pretty good. I'm still using the free version. But, if your connection's not good or their connection's overloaded, you get a lot of lag. And tonight has just been unbelievable, like for lag. Like last week was a lot better as far as connection is concerned.
Do you mind I ask a question to Mike?
Go ahead.
Are you aware of any anti-magnetic watch or time component or something? Remember, I was showing my watch right here. This watch.
Are you trying to say a non-magnetic watch?
Anti-magnetic, yeah. I've got this one, but I don't know
The
if.
only thing I can think of is the sand clock.
Sorry?
All I can think of is a sand clock.
Oh, yeah. Hourglass. Yeah, I got that.
Hourglass. It's made out of sand. There's
Yeah.
no way a magnetic field can,
I've got one. I show you that last 30
yeah,
minutes.
two identical sand clocks.
Yeah.
And they should drop the last sand grain at the same time if they got the same number of grains in it.
Yeah.
That's a difficult test to do. You'd have to test the two sand clocks first to see if they're accurate with each other before you know.
Yeah, but I got only one, so I have to reuse it over and over,
Right.
Yeah.
So with the different models, you can be affecting the physics with the etheron flow, okay, from a subquantum kinetics perspective, as opposed to affecting the time flow. So within, because you're affecting the working with the electric flow, that's affecting the etheron flow, which can affect the other particle flow and the particle reactions. Just like when you're spinning up particles, using vortical behavior, and you're getting better chemical and biological reactions, you can also be getting better physical reactions or slowing physical reactions by working with the other electrical components. So it's not just the chemical and biological effects; it might also be the physical effects also. So that does not mean that you're warping time. Remember, time was invented by Einstein, and there's like 4,000 peer-reviewed articles saying that there's problems with the relativity model. It's an extra complexity you don't necessarily need, but it's very interesting because the same experiments you're doing, you say, hey, you're actually affecting how physics is operating, okay, as opposed to necessarily time that's operating. So just like chemical, working with vortical behaviors, you're affecting chemicals happening faster, chemical reactions and biological reactions faster because the particles are spinning faster. By spinning the particles faster, you can have physical reactions like sand happening faster, or explosions happening better, like with HHO. So other physical properties can happen faster or more explosively or what have you, by spinning things up faster. And so those electrical experiments that you're working on can have the effects that you're describing. It's just a theoretical model behind it might be a little different.
Yeah, I agree. 100% agree. Time is not a dimension. Time rate is just like it's not like something magical. It's just an engine that tells the particle how fast it can.
Right, and it's not that the theoretical models are competing with each other. It's that you want a theoretical model that makes it easier for you to conceptualize and work with things. So if this model, the chemical reactions happen faster, the biological reactions faster, the explosions can be more explosive when things are spun up, or sands can drop faster because the particles are spinning faster. Okay, so if you think of it from that perspective, that can give you a whole bunch of different ways of speeding things up. It's not that you're affecting time, it's that you're spinning things up, and there's so many different ways to spin things up, whether it's crystals or capacitors or light or sound or physical motion or electronics that this group has been working with. All of these different ways are ways of spinning things up more effectively. And so you've got a whole bunch of different ways of spinning things up and having the effects that you're talking about. So it's a much richer model to work with, to try and think of things and to experiment with things. It gives you a whole bunch of different options of experimenting with things. And my experience is it works. Okay, you can start chaining things. You can start with better materials to get better spins, like better capacitors. Like orgone. Oh, those are capacitors. Let's just get better capacitors, and it worked.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, my theory is very similar to yours, and I'm not saying that I'm not like not because I'm anti-relativist that I hate Einstein and things like that. I like Einstein, but
Einstein is a brilliant guy. If you look at his quotes, he really was looking at things from a very high level perspective, and thinking about different models. And
every time I say that Einstein was wrong, people say, "Oh, you hate him." No, I don't hate him.
His model has problems.
100% right.
It's got paradoxes in it. It's a problem. I don't use it. Okay.
The vacuum catastrophe, dark matter, dark energy, and all that baloney, multiple parallel universes, wormholes, all baloney.
We're getting into science fiction. It's just so silly. So you drop all that stuff with subquantum kinetics, and the whole thing is you want to use it as a tool to do experiments and to build tools like this group is doing.
Yeah.
And so everything's a tool. So
I'll watch your videos, and let's try to watch my presentation I did on APEC also, if you can.
Yeah, you did a presentation at this group, or
no, on APEC like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Last year it was more detailed. It was an official presentation, but 2 or 3 weeks ago it was just the small talk, APEC small talk or whatever.
Yeah, you can send me a link via YouTube chat, I guess. I think YouTube you can send messages to people, or you put a comment in one of my videos or whatever.
Yeah, all right, cool.
Yeah, my email is just justin.coven@jcoven.com. I'll put that in the private chat.
Justin Coven.
So I was getting some feedback on the how do I say this? Loading a battery and charging it at the same time. I was replying that the battery's not loading and charging at the same time. It's being charged on its off cycle.
Right. Okay. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I got that in your original explanation.
It's a pulse system, it's pulsed.
Right.
So, but it is loading and charging relatively fast as far as time is concerned. But technically, it's not loading and charging at the same time. It's loading on its on cycle and it's being charged on its off cycle.
Okay.
So that's in my circuit on my channel. If you want to, it's the Bedini circuit, but it's modified.
Guys, we're at the 2-hour mark.
Great. Okay. So what I do in my other group is basically, at this time, if people have got things to talk about, I say, let's put it on the agenda for next week. And I actually keep an agenda. We can cover stuff.
Gotcha. Mike's frustrated with the lag over there.
He's like he's a little tired there too. I'm a little I'm on a break too.
Yeah, I've been up since 5:15 a.m.
Have a wonderful week.
Justin, do you?
We're going to be doing it again next week. Same place, same time. Yeah, you guys too.
Okay. Phil, I see you put in your @
You guys too. Have a great week, and hopefully your experiments go well. And you guys can share everything with us again to Friday night, 8:30 Eastern, same channel. And hopefully this horrible connection will be a lot better.
Okay.
See you, Mike. See you guys.
Bye.
All right, guys. See you.